Hello, welcome back to Outside Xbox. I'm Mike, and let's start with a bit of a confession. You see, I was labouring under the impression that Gearbox's upcoming game Battleborn, not Bloodborne, Battleborn, was some sort of first-person MOBA. As a result, every time its name was mentioned, I immediately fell asleep and snored myself awake about an hour later. Yes, I understand that MOBAs are very popular and that there are some good ones out there, but they're not really for me. It turns out that actually Battleborn isn't a MOBA, although it does have a MOBA-ish multiplayer mode called Meltdown. Battleborn is actually something different entirely, a game that's mostly a first-person shooter, but contains characters that have no business being in a first-person shooter. Here are 5 of my favourites, complete with a bit of gameplay from the work-in-progress PC version to illustrate them. You've heard the old adage about not bringing a knife to a gunfight? Well, clearly Phoebe assumed that the knife part of the saying was a bit more specific than it actually is, which is why she turns up brandishing a skinny fencing sword instead. Also, her gown contains teleportation technology, allowing her not only to blink around a bit like Corvo in Dishonored, but also to look appropriately dressed at any upper-class balls she might be invited to along the way. Given that I was completely confused by what sort of game this was, it should be pointed out that this is one of a series of campaign missions that can be played in single player or with up to 4 co-op friends for a 5-person squad. The unique twist is, rather than levelling up as part of a metagame, each time you play a mission or a multiplayer match you start from level 1 and will rattle through the ranks, customising your character based on the challenge you're facing. It's sort of like Borderlands, but for people with a minuscule attention span, though if that's you, you probably stopped listening after I said the word Borderlands. Alright, Clockwork robot butler Marquis does appear to have a gun, but technically that's actually a cane that just happens to also be a pistol, and a sniper rifle, and it's not his most interesting ability either. His most interesting ability is his penchant for owl fancy. Not fancying as in he wants to kiss them on the beak, but fancying as in breeding and keeping them. It's an actual word, look it up. These owls are a sort of deadly proximity mine and can be upgraded over the course of a round to become invisible. Invisible deadly owls, you don't get that in Battlefield 4. The absolute best reason to choose Marquis though is the ability to look down and watch his skinny robot knees pumping away as he runs about. Obviously staring at your legs instead of your enemies is likely to get you killed, but it's totally worth it.
Don't let them spoil our big day.
Boulder is your standard Tolkien-esque fantasy dwarf character in all but one rather important aspect. He's bloody massive. He needs to be though, because his primary method of dealing damage is a flurry of punches, so he needs to get up close. To do that, he's got a sort of Viking riot shield on the left trigger that can absorb a ton of damage as you leg it towards your target. He also has an axe that can be upgraded to be increasingly damaging, but it's more of a slow reload one-shot ability. Better is his Boulder dash, which allows you to shoulder barge your way into enemies for a substantial amount of damage.
Enemy minion altars have been relocated.
Plus, you can gain a psychological advantage by activating your taunt and flashing your bum at them, enraging them into making rash tactical errors. Super valuable ability, that one. Thorn is essentially the ultimate bow and arrow character with a satisfyingly accurate primary weapon. Using a special ability called Volley, it can fire multiple arrows at once and be upgraded so that arrows penetrate through enemies. Thorn's other ability is called Blight, which is a sort of area of effect trap that at its most basic level causes damage, but can be upgraded to also slow enemies down and add a cursed effect to your arrows when you as the player stand in it. The only slight downside is that Thorn doesn't have a personal shield, so you'll have to rely on rapidly recharging health in order to stay alive. Better to use her speed and range to your advantage than rely on getting caught up right in the middle of a fight. Of course, you might be able to mitigate some of any character's weaknesses with the metagame. By opening packs, you can build a loadout of buffs and stat increases that will benefit whichever character you've picked. With Battleborn's system of resetting levelling and skill unlocks at the beginning of each match, these are the only perks that you build over time. Presumably you can also spend real money on these packs because hey, this is 2015 after all and game publishers love them some microtransactions. Benedict is a rocket launcher toting cyborg with a hawk head and a voice that is exactly the same as Matthew McConaughey's. Welcome to your new favourite video game character. Benedict's lift-off ability gives him the power of limited flight. It's initially tricky to get to grips with because it's a combination of boosting upwards and then gliding, but skilled players can stay airborne almost indefinitely. I am not a skilled player. His gun is a rocket launcher allowing you to rain down fiery ordnance from the sky. What more do you really need to know? Alright, those are your 5. If all that character variety sounds a bit scary for you, you can always just select the character called Oscar Mike, who is the game's combination of traditional first-person shooter character and Call of Duty piss take.
Locked and loaded. And reloaded. Gun references.
He's a clone soldier, get it? Because all military shooters are... Anyway, the point is you'd have to be suffering from a distinct lack of imagination to pick him. Like and subscribe if you appreciate the fact that not once did I accidentally call this game Bloodborne instead of Battleborn, and we'll see you next time on Outside Xbox.